Hello, fellow co-creators. Welcome to Seeds of Elegance. I am so excited to have you for this episode. In the last episode, I mentioned I came back after about 6 to 9 months, something in there. Enough time to like have an emotional baby. And what's beautiful is in that episode, if you haven't watched it, please go back and watch me and Anusha Suresh. She was an amazing collaborator and a coach in my life as well. And following up this episode, I have today Victoria Amor, who is I had two guardian angels as I've begun walking this process of the divine feminine path. And on one was Anusha Suresh, and on the other was Victoria Amor. So today I get to bring this angel and devil who has truly cleared a path for me in the world. And I'm so excited to get to center her life, her being, and her upcoming program in this conversation. Hello, Victoria.
Hello. I'm very surprised. I didn't know we were redefining the term devil today also. That's quite exciting.
Oh, we're going to be redefining a lot of terms. So I want to begin with a little story, actually, of me encountering you, and then let you get to share what you want. But I think it's important, our initial connection. You can even say what
Yeah. It's also really beautiful to hear the reflection back. So I'm excited to hear the story, even though I'm sure I lived it with you.
there's multiple scenes in it, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna refresh you on how I remember.
Yeah.
Um, so we were in a program together called Vita, and week two or session two, I don't know, we moduled it out, right? It's one of the first, just yeah, second time through that. I don't know how many weeks in we were. One of the assignments is that you write a letter to a future woman in the type of community that you want to see. It was actually like a sexually positive community. And I got that assignment and I actually like wrote to some of our what they call, I don't know, the coaches who help you from past cohorts who are there. And I wrote a letter. I was like, I don't know if I can even write that. I don't know how to imagine a sexually positive community. Like I'm here because I want to do this, but every time I try to picture forward, I can't see it because I keep seeing the painful stuff.
Yeah.
And then I got on our group page and you had written this long post and it was like I have this feeling when I read certain spiritual texts like from yoga and parts of the Bible and other texts where like there's a in my system. It's like my system calling me into center. And reading that manifesto from you was a moment like that. And I won't repeat some of it here, but essentially, a very beautiful line that many of us were commenting on was about a woman's virginity and how we would reteach that concept. But you went further with that concept and was like, however you want to receive through that is up to you and about you. And there was some even more vivid language in there. But it was complete and total acceptance of certain things that I felt and experienced that I have not felt okay to put words to. So I want to start there. I messaged you and I was like, she probably won't message me back. Mm. And you did. And we ended up connecting. It took a couple of months before we had our first one-to-one, but we had this very beautiful experience where we spoke so much about our lives, how different they were, and also how we both ended up here in this place. And so there's juice and magic there, but I want to thank you for that manifesto, which really was like an activator for me that there is such a vision of a sexually positive community that can exist.
Yeah. I feel like it's so beautiful to pull out that piece that you couldn't even see it, because that's something that I'm noticing in coaching that is so powerful, is that when people can't see it, that we actually really are helpful when we give them this vision, right? Even though I hadn't fully experienced that empowering vision, I'm enough steps ahead that I can see it, that I can imagine it, and to be able to like reflect that back instead of being scared that, oh, those people can't see it, or yeah, or they're like still in judgment of it. No, no, there's deep power in reflecting it back.
Beautiful. it's also important for me to acknowledge because this place is called Seeds of Elegance, and it's a lot about that each person that I bring on here, I believe we each carry a seed. And if we nurture it and want it to. And that seed is gonna, who knows, it could be a flower, it could be a tree, it could be a whole garden. It's not on me to know that, but I want there to be safety to start to bring that seed and have it planted in collective consciousness. And I appreciate that we can sit here. We'll get more into detail in a moment about your life, but we can actually sit here and say, we don't know exactly what it looks like, but we can feel it or sense it. Did you feel like you were given a vision of a sex positive world? Did people show you good examples of that growing up, or did you come to it on your own?
Well, I would say that I didn't receive the barriers to stop me from touching it. So, because I was raised in this kind of like free love hippie lifestyle with a single dad who surrounded me with all of these hippie women because he had a sense that I needed female figures in my life. I didn't have a mother since I was 4. And so I had this love and accept yourself. So it was this very body acceptance. Nudity wasn't associated with sexuality. It was people walked around naked. And sexuality also wasn't looked at as a negative thing. I didn't learn a whole lot about it, but I didn't learn anything negative about it. So I feel like that really set me up to not have these barriers to be afraid of it. And then being a young child, I found myself in this space of being like violently slut shamed as a really little girl. I'm talking like at maybe 9. I was definitely still single digits, maybe 9. And it was violent. Well, I'll start how it began. So I had been teased incessantly for having acne, and I had a single dad, no mom. I was constantly teased. And then one Halloween, my neighbors dressed me up, I think, as a cheerleader. And I remember looking in the mirror and thinking, for the first time in my life, like I look beautiful. I was like the acne faced girl that got teased for being chubby. And so now I'm looking in the mirror and I'm like, I'm beautiful. And I thought I would go to school and be popular, but it didn't work that way. I went to school and suddenly I was the school slut. And what I did have going for me is that nobody taught me to cower down, right? I was taught love. I was taught all of these beautiful qualities. So I just kept being me, even though I was being punished really badly for it. And after this had been going on it had been going on for probably 6 months or a year, and it became violent. The girls started inviting me places, tricking me and cornering me, and then a whole bunch of them would violently attack me. And I got to a certain point where it was like a fuck this shit moment. I think I was 11, so it went on for 2 years. I was 11 at this point, and it was like this fuck this shit moment that if they're all going to say this about me, they're going to spread all of these rumors, they're going to violently attack me. I'm going to do this thing. And so I didn't have a bigger vision. I kind of just started creating my own connection to sexuality through this like terrifying, rebellious experience in my life. And as I did that, I touched like feminine powers that have showed me that there is something more. So I can reach it. I can touch for it, even though I've still not fully seen the reality that I want now as I do more conscious work, right? There's like sex positive communities. So there is more of that, but still not the vision that you read about in the letter. By the way, feel free anytime to take
Bringing
a
it.
clip out of that. Like if you ever want to just take something out, I'm quite proud of my visions.
I need to go back and revisit. I should have went and found it and brought it here. But it's I have full faith that it's already living in you and it's gonna come forward. Thank you so much for sharing that much. And there's yeah, there's a lot of different pieces, but I would love to know for you, I just heard this quote. I know both you and I value Joe Dispenza.
Oh yeah.
And someone recently reminded me of this quote from him, which is that we're constantly like the past is an unreliable source of information for us because we are remembering the past always based on what we're experiencing now. But we start to remember the past differently when we start to see the future differently.
Oh, yes.
And this is complex. Like we are both coming from a trauma-informed training. We're both coming from our own types of trauma. We're acknowledging, Joe Dispenza also acknowledges the reality of trauma and also that we're not limited, we're not stuck there. So I just want to go back, like even listening to you tell the story, even though I've heard that, um, there's like a oh in my gut because I also know how these women brought you into a was it a basketball court when
Yeah.
cornered you?
Yeah.
So I had like I'll let you take, but like I actually have these like visceral reactions to some of that I never experienced
Yeah.
that myself. And I have that, and I like want to hold you right now. Like even now as an adult, I'm like, I don't want that. I don't want that for any girl. I don't want anyone going through that. And you have taken not only that experience, but everything else that has come since then and built who you are. So I actually want to like bring my own confusion, even though I know you as a person. I want to bring to the table my own, like, there's a part of me that really wants to go, like, that's so not okay. And I wish that never happened to you. And then I'm also experiencing who I've become knowing you in the last 2 years, experiencing who you are now, and just, yeah, I want to invite you into maybe a little exploring of how you have taken trauma and extraordinary mistreatment and created who you are through that, or in spite of that, or however you like to see it.
Yeah, it's interesting. As you said, that you would want to like hold me or someone who's experienced that and be like, you should never have to go through that. I just wanted to jump out of my seat and be like, no. So, and lust, which is the work that I'm pioneering now, right, is bringing this more sexual liberation, sexual empowerment to women. Unless I had been raised in a deeply sexually empowered place, which I don't even think exists yet in the world. Like I'm not talking about free love hippies like that are just teach you it's okay. Like a true, like women showing their daughters what true feminine power is, which I'm not even sure we've fully touched yet. Unless I was raised in that, I would never want that experience to be taken away because it is that exact experience that allowed me to touch my essence of my feminine energy and my sexuality in a way that I'm able to live a life like I don't see any other women. And it's not just that I attract wealth. There's a lot of women. There's a lot of women that are in their sexual energy that are living a very wealth life. It's it's the whole energy, it's the whole vibration. And it's the emotional connection is a really big part of it too, right? And oh, oh, I just had something good that I
Please
lost.
take your
Tell
time.
me the question again, please.
Yeah. And it is, I kind of phrase the question as like, do you want to comment on that? Like, there's
Oh,
the whole gut reaction of like, that sucks. It
yeah,
shouldn't have happened.
yeah,
And then how did you become who you are through that? How do you hold that
yes.
path?
The foundational piece is the piece that it just like escaped me for a moment there. I feel like sometimes our consciousness does that. It's like, let me run this off because it's really powerful. And I don't know if you should say this.
Yes.
Um, yeah, I feel like it's the piece of me allowing myself to have the anger. It is this part of being like this fuck this shit moment that this is wrong. This is not okay. And because of this, I'm going to I want to say explode, but that doesn't really truly define what it is. I say explode in comparison to cower down, right? What I do, I guess, and the opposite of cower down would be somewhat of an explosion, but it's like I allowed myself to really feel my anger. I decided now, what is this anger telling me I get to do now? Because what I don't get to do is I don't get to hold the resentment. What I don't get to do is I don't get to take on your trauma, your drama, and the awful things that you're doing to me. So now, what is the message that this anger is telling me that I do get to do now? And I'm going to do it in a way that is going to feel so delicious and so playful for me. And I feel like that has been the piece that has allowed me to live through so much trauma and to continue to open up to it, to become my best self through it, to even find amazing success in it.
Mm. I want to give a literal example too from just knowing you, something that shifted in my life. And then jump back into that. I'm someone who's very sensitive emotionally, energetically. So sometimes I just need to get in touch with someone, and that alone will like, it's like for me getting these inner realizations like, wait, that's possible. If that's possible, we're switching lanes. Like I was just going down that road, but if that's over there, we're going. Because I thought that was a thing, but I didn't know how to get over there. Okay, someone's doing it. It exists. And the place that happened, it's taken me a little time now to realize like there's a lot of roads that exist like that in life. But that's not how I started living. Contrast to you, I had a two-parent home. I had 12 kids in my family, and I was raised with a super strong narrative like Jesus Christ is Lord. He is your Lord and Savior. You are broken. That's a very important message because if you're not broken, then you don't need Jesus. So remember that you're broken
Ooh.
and remember
Ooh.
every day.
Wow.
And then because you're broken, Jesus can come in, and because Jesus can come in, you can be saved. Because you can be saved, you can go to heaven. And to my listeners, truly, I believe in Christ consciousness, and we can get into that in a different episode. But I do not say this to insult Christianity, but to really think about the consequences of this specific discourse about brokenness and the need for a him, he, Jesus Christ, on how we treat this vessel. Because my relationship then to this vessel, the me who wanted to be a very perfect Christian, you can say there was conditioning, but there was also the way I took it on, which was if I want to be a perfect Christian, I need to be perfectly available for Christ, which means perfectly broken. And if I want to be broken and ready for Christ, then what's funny is like if I was really broken, I actually might have just, it might have made more sense to accept this for what it is. But what I did do was deny that I have an identity, personality, emotions, and a female body, and strive to perfection within that framework. And even as I moved away from Christianity, this same striving for perfection so that I could be saved really stuck with me. Like it took me a lot of replacing the Christ framework with other things for a while to be like, okay, well, even if I'm starting to decenter Christ, like I still need a savior. I'm still broke. I still need a savior. Something has to save me. Something has to come in. And when I met you, and there was another thing that was happening through that period as I was trying to find my savior in my own way, I was noticing my longings were getting more and more and more. And this confused me as well, because even when I gave up Christ, I was going toward Buddha. And, there's always the lens in the spiritual to be detached, to not want more. And at the same time, I was feeling more desire, and not just desire that felt uncontrollable, but like ambition and um yeah, I don't want to go into it all right now. More, 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 more. And I didn't know what to do with it. So I just found myself splitting. I'm like, with my spiritual peeps being like, humans just forget everything. And we're all one and we're all connected and we don't need anything. And then with the shadow of desire that was driving everything, I'm still processing it, so I shouldn't bring it all here. But enter Victoria Moore in my life. And here's this person who's like, oh, in the body, oh, like moving, oh, not waiting on anyone else's authority, oh, speaking into things that you definitely shouldn't say out in the world in any context. And when I got on a call with you and we first started, you actually offered me coaching at that time. And I can picture like getting off the first call. My brother was in the room, I was in the kitchen after I got off or maybe we hadn't even called, we had just voice texted at that moment. It was very early on. And my brother's like, how are you? I was like, I'm amazing. And there was just like this huge download, like everything I want, I'm allowed to have. And no one had spoken that to me yet. And no one had spoken it in a way that had felt safe. Like I felt very afraid that if I'm starting to go for things that I want, it means that I'm turning away from God or like I'll explode in a worse way. So that's a long tangent, but that like you activated in me the ability to ask for more and seek more and desire more. And that's not even on the like we're not even in the sexuality yet. This is just like on the human. They're all connected. But just as a being, like, oh shit, these big visions I've been holding that I've been like literally trying to keep in the box because I'm so afraid they're bad and wrong and too much. Like, I can actually put them front and center and trust this want for more. Thank you for letting me go down that path.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such an important piece to the way that I live life and the work that I do is not only allowing ourselves to want more, but recognizing when we ask for more, not just to ask for more, but because it's truly in alignment with what fulfills us and thrills us, that that's actually our best way of loving, bringing our best to life. That's actually in benefit to everyone around us, not taking away from them. It's like so backwards from what we've been taught. And so irrefutably true when you put it into action.
Mm. So, because I know you, I'm aware that you are someone who has this background in consciousness, mindfulness, you've trained in yoga, you have a lot of mindset work under your belt, and I'm just going to speak it. You're not exactly the person that pops into someone's mind when you think of all those things. And I just wondered if you could speak a little bit about the journey of two different things. Like, one, getting into consciousness, mindfulness, meditation, however you view that at all, from like being that 11-year-old girl, 2 years brutalized by other women. And then the second thing is like how you have held yourself, because I believe that a lot of spiritual and religious environments continue to perpetrate the repression of sexuality. And I don't believe I think there's some environments where it's intentional, and I think there's others where there's like a genuine, like, we don't know how to do this well, and we don't know how to do it right or better. We think it's just going to cause pain. So, like, let's just all stay in line. And whether that's enforced or not, like, we're all kind of carrying around the like, oh, I won't dress too sexy. Like, I don't want to be the one in the meditation room with my cleavage out, or like whatever it is. And so we're just like at this disgusting, in my opinion, standstill.
Yeah.
Ready to be ruptured. But yeah, I'll let you speak to either, but I don't know how intersected the journeys are. If you see them as two different journeys, like your sexual journey and your spiritual journey is different or connected.
No, I feel like they're very connected. And yeah, so what I would say is when I first came into it, I actually thought that I was supposed to get rid of my sexiness, right? So very early on, I had a spiritual coach and I was meditating. And like you said, I was like in the yoga world. And I tried to dress differently. I tried to fit in with those spaces. But the deeper I did the work, the more that I was pointed back to like, what's your truth? Just like spiritual work continues to point you back in. I recognized without these parts of me, I'm not me. I'm not in my greatest. It was just some new level of trying to belong, which I didn't even do that in like quote unquote the real world before, but now I was in the spiritual world and I was trying to fit in. And at a certain point, I just realized like, this isn't true for me, right? If I'm supposed to be in my truth, this isn't true for me. Even though I had been for so much of my life punished for being in this fullest expression in the spiritual place, as I am doing this deeper work, I realize that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I'm punished for that. That's actually one of the truest parts of me. And so I started bringing that back in. And what I noticed when you do, which I'm sure you do these spiritual retreats, you know this, but for anyone who doesn't, when we do these workshops, spiritual retreats, there's always reflection points. So I'm regularly starting to get reflections back from people. And it was wild to hear how inspired people were, how I was activating parts of them just by showing up in my unapologetic expression and realizing I didn't have to sacrifice. I get to be a total like spiritual babe while also being fully expressed in my sexuality. And then finding Vita really showed me that everything I knew from a child was like was totally true. That like my pussy is the portal to God. Was like, oh yeah, no wonder. Like now this all makes sense. And it's really interesting. This is just kind of a fun fact, but I'll share it because it's fun. Very early on in my experience, I'd like had a spiritual coach, been meditating maybe for like a year. This was very early in my experience. I ended up winning an Inked magazine contest and it was in Arizona. And I was like, I think I'm supposed to go to Sedona, like early in the spiritual journey. Sedona's amazing, right? But early in the spiritual journey, like Sedona's just on the list of like, oh, that would be amazing to like meditate in Sedona. So I'm like, I think I'm supposed to go to Sedona. And I sign up for this like spiritual retreat that you piece together in Sedona. And I end up meditating on a horse. And the message that this is a fairly famous woman who channels through her horse. And the message she gave me, she was like, I feel like you're drawn to this deeply spiritual sexual work. She was like, she's like, don't get scared. This is very spiritual and powerful, but it kind of feels like a spiritual sex cult. And I was like, oh God, no, like never. Like I wanted to get away from that sexy stuff at that point. I was dressing like in like ponchos and stuff. I was trying to dress spiritual. And I was like, oh God, no, like definitely not. And she had me go through this breath. She was like, breathe in through your pussy and out through your heart. And now here I am. That's like one of the breaths that I lead women through. Not that I just made up and not that just because that horse told me, like, this is something that Vita trains us. This is like ancient Taoist practices. And yeah, so this horse in Sedona actually kind of read my future a while back.
While you were going for the inked photo shoot.
Yeah, exactly.
Also,
Yes.
I'm laughing because the sun started coming in so strong while you're telling that story, and the shadow and light was just like growing, growing, growing. And I was like, okay, that's
Oh, wow.
this is,
Okay.
we are talking about shadow and light over here, but we don't need that much light. Um, that's amazing. And that's also for me, even though I don't mean to say I'm not, I'm in a initiatory. I don't know if that's a verb, but I'm in
Yes.
my own initiation with owning sexuality work as part of my life work and what I'm doing. So it's still very new, but I do like to tell people that like I mean, I already had intuitions and inklings about it and desire to do it, but it was at a retreat, a Vipassana retreat, that I had this kind of image or vision come to me, and I was working with a couple, and I was like, oh, like I would. This wasn't like I was like turned on and having like a fantasy. It was like, oh, this is like a download. This is an image of a place that we're going. And there was so much peace. Like, you know, when something is like, there is that rejection piece a little of like, um, at times when we when we get a little bit about where we might be headed, it's like, wait, I'm not ready, or I wasn't planning to go that way. But then there's also deep peace. Like, oh yeah. No, no, that makes sense. I'm ready to go there. I want to go there. So thank you for sharing about the retreats. I've really valued hearing this from you as well, because it's been like throughout knowing you, I've been like, can wait, I'm testing myself as well. What's allowed, what's okay, how I do it, and learning how to put out how people are responding to it. But I would ask you throughout the time that I've known you, like, how do you deal with this? How do you deal with this? How do you deal with this? And one of the things that did surprise me that you would share with me is that even though you were dressing in the way you were, or putting yourself out there in the way you were in a bunch of spaces that conventionally would not want it, that women always would end up coming up to you after and saying thank you. So how do you act? Like, what is threatening about you, Victoria? Like, how, from your own vantage point, you don't have to view it as threatening, but like, how is it that you walk through the world? And what is the feedback that you, not that it matters because it's not about them, but in some ways you have had a unique experience by living how you're living. And I am curious how what you've heard back from women who have been able to be courageous enough to tell you, I wish I could unleash that, or I want to.
Yeah, the feedback that I get from women is complete opposite from what I would have ever expected. I grew up in this state because I was attacked and teased, where I really thought that women were turned off by this, women didn't like this, women didn't like me. But as I put myself in these, prior to this, I had no female friends. I isolated myself from all women because of that experience in life. And so I just lived in that belief system. But doing the spiritual work, going to the retreats, and can now making deep connections with women, and like you being one of them, getting these, even when I got your reflection back, it was like, whoa, like that shocked me. That was one of the reasons why I wanted to coach you. I was like we need to be connected here. I need this reflection, right? Because I had such a belief that women didn't like this, but it's the exact opposite. Every single woman in my adult life now that I have talked to, that I've actually talked to, it's not that I haven't had anyone be mean to me, but that's rare. It actually is rare. The women that I've spoken to, and the majority of all women that I've experienced, have told me the exact opposite. They're in awe. They're like, either like you, like, I didn't know that that was possible. I didn't know you could be that way. Or how are you being that way? Like you need to tell me. And there's this sense that I have a different connection to life itself, is what I seem to hear back. Like, it's not like, show me how you just have the courage to dress that way. I don't even think women necessarily want to like dress like me. They want to know, like, how do you just boldly show up and say anything you want, do anything you want, and wear anything you want, and feel so good about it. But then also how I'm received. What I found is that when I got deeply connected to my own inner sense of acceptance, to my own, oh, I am worthy. I can be like this and I deserve respect like this. Because there were some inappropriate comments from men that was actually quite common. And I didn't even realize that there was anything wrong with it. I actually thought that they were being sweet. It feels so sad to look back now. And I see this as a common thing with women who appear to be in their sexual expression, right? Women who will just wear anything but haven't done the deeper work. That these comments from men, the very reason why a lot of women don't want to be sexually expressed, right? That came because I didn't actually know my worth, because I actually wasn't being my own internal validation system. Once I built these spaces in me, that I didn't actually need anyone to think that I was pretty. I didn't need anyone to think that I was okay. I'm still going to dress like this, but you can think that I'm fat. You can think that I'm anything I want. I'm still going to feel beautiful and hot and worthy. I had to build that part. Before, I was just walking the walk. I actually had to build that part. And once I build that part, I command respect. Not only do I get from women, wow, like, either teach me, or I love this about you, or I'm amazed by this, but also from men. Now I get that. And I didn't shift anything I'm doing on the exterior. I only shifted what's on the interior. So I know that wasn't the exact question, but I feel like that wanted to come out, is like this piece where women are taught to be afraid of it because of the reaction that we will get and how men will treat us. That as long as we do the inner work with it, that it's the exact opposite. Men are in just as much awe as women are in. And no longer do I get any more of those. Rarely, rarely. When I do now, it's just like, oh, delete and block you. You don't get my attention. But they're rare now.
Mm. It's, I'm aware. There's so much that come, like, I've spoken to you for a long time, and still as I talk to you right now, like, there's like, when you speak, there's so many things that come up. And so I just want to speak to the audience here. Like, if I wrote this on a post when I reposted your work the other day, Victoria, but I was like, did this post trigger you? If so, great. Triggers are here to, I'm stealing this from a coach I like, Brianna Lynn. Triggers are here to tap us in, tune us in, turn us on. So let it be. And someone who follows me liked that I wasn't expecting them to, and I appreciate that. Plenty of people don't publicly like things and then they contact me later, which I think is fun, because we're all on our own journeys. But it reminds me, yeah, I just want to restate that now for anything, because we're going to actually go a little bit deeper now in this conversation into the P word. And I just welcome whatever is coming up. If you need to pause this, pause it. If you need to walk away, walk away. But other than that, like, let what is here permeate and lift up questions. Do you want to say anything about how you deal with trigger, Victoria? or any
Sure,
advice?
I would love trigger is one of my favorite things to talk about
Okay.
because I
Well,
feel like it's the most transformative. If you never do any inner work, reform your relationship with triggers. Because I believe that the triggers we experience, the spaces that are like, that's bad, I'm in judgment of it, that is wrong, that is scary, bleh, that's actually the exact place that wants our attention. Like, probably exactly what you've been saying that you want is on the other side of this trigger or of the destructive thing that just happened in your life. You actually, what you've been asking for, what your soul has been like begging for. You just didn't know that you had to step through this like icky, gross place to find it, right? But what you want is on the other side of that. And I really, really encourage like everyone to look at those triggers and just be curious. Just be like why? Why am I so triggered by it? What is it here to teach me? What is it asking me to unleash within myself? Like these kind of questions. And at some point, you'll actually be excited to see those triggers.
powerful. And I'll just share the one image that popped in my head right now when you were talking about clothes, or I don't know, something you were saying just reminded me of someone who recently got back in touch with me. She was like, I've been following your work for years, and I didn't recognize her name at all. So I was like, okay, that's cool. And then I re-looked on my Facebook things, and I found, oh, she had originally reached out to me back when I made this post in 2017. And I looked back at the conversation we had, and I'm like, oh, and I wrote her now. I was like, this was the start of this is how I got into all this, which was just like that summer. I was so triggered because I moved to DC, and I grew up in New York City, so I had actually been used to like catcalling and like, which sounds gross because I was under the age of 14 when I lived there, but that is the reality. So I had been used to like all of that, like when I lived there as a kid, but then I lived in Michigan up through high school and college, which is, until the age of 21. And then when I moved to DC, I forgot like, oh, when you're around humans who think they can want to do whatever they want. And I had had these like series of situations with men in subways and things like touching me or grabbing me or throwing things. And I wrote a post about it. And then the first comment was from my friend's dad, and he was like, well, what were you wearing?
Ooh.
And thank goodness I had a man in my life at that time be like, I really don't think that's the point of the post. And I wanted an excuse to block him anyway. I should have done it sooner. There was another year where I was like on a motorcycle with a guy, and he commented like, why do you think you get to like do that? Or it's like, why do you think you get to do that? But I really was wanting to get to a place where I could freely tune that out. But I was actually holding the both and of like, maybe I am actually bringing this on. And then also he's asking me what I'm wearing, and it's not his business, but also, it's aggravating the belief that I existing in my body am wrong. And yeah, I'll do you have any feedback on that?
I feel like it's important that you shared that. I just went through a conversation with a close friend last night, a little bit different, but it was around having attachment. This is where I believe it connects. It was around having attachment. When other people say certain things, this attachment of like, that was wrong. How could they say that? Or is it true? Like this energy attachment, right? And this is one of the powers that I believe I built. Sure, there's some mindset work, but I actually think that this was grounded in a woman being fully in her sexual empowerment. Is that when you're coming from this energy, you hear people say things and you're so in tune with what you know is right. Like when Libby knows that it doesn't matter what anyone wears, a woman deserves respect. A woman is a goddess that deserves respect. I'm stuttering. I'm so excited. So here's one of my beliefs. I should, and I know that this isn't common, we can't do this, but I am so unshakable in my connection with who I am, my body, and my right to exist. I feel like I should be able to walk down the street fully naked. And I, one, deserve respect. Nobody should give me any crap. Sure, I do recognize people will look, but I deserve to not be called at, not be anything. And if anyone were to, I would just turn around and be like, no, I don't, no, I don't receive. I don't need to get mad. I don't need to get angry. I don't need to defend myself. It's a hard no. I don't accept. And I feel like that's what happens when we're so connected. I love this body I live in. My body deserves pleasure. My body deserves love. I deserve to exist. I deserve to have all of the things that I want. And I will look in the mirror and be like, I am gorgeous. From that energy, we're not attached to the guy who thinks that a woman shouldn't dress a certain way. We will look at it and be like, well, that's gross. No, right? Delete, block. No, you're not allowed to be in my space. Hey, buddy, we're in a relationship. When you talk like that, it makes me have zero interest in you. So I'm not available to be around you anymore. That's it. And can you feel the difference between that and I can't believe, how could he say that? Why would he? This is not just a mindset shift. The energy leak that we have to our own connection to ourself and in general how this perpetuates when we are connected to it that way, how long do we carry it for? Weeks, months, years, our whole life? Do we start changing how we dress because of it? Do we start not trusting men? So that means we don't choose relationships because of it? Like it's far reaching.
I love that series of questions because I'm going to go into one more little taboo area and then allow us to discuss your program Sexy Back that's coming up.
Sexy
Sexy
bitch.
bitch.
No, I do like sexy back.
um I I yeah, I still have not in my own life come like figured out how to speak these things, so I'm still going to speak them a little bit around the corner. But essentially after Dan died, I created this. I'd sat down one day and I wrote every story that women had told me in my life. Because from the time I was young, I was already like, A, people were coming to me with assault that was happening to them. But B, I was also getting like warned and like, and this happened to me and this yeah, I don't want to speak too much more detail, but it was very close to me, even though I myself hadn't been impacted in that way. A lot of people who were energetically very close. And my reaction at that time as a human was, put it away. I don't know what to do with that. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do about that. I can't control that. And you hold it is what you do if it doesn't get worked with, whether it happened to you or to someone you love. And when you ask the line of questions that you just asked, I think that this is part of the, I don't know, I'm going to use the word like ancestral, like shift that I think you're here to initiate, but that's just my view is like these questions have to be asked. And but they get to actually be asked in a different way as well. There's actually an invitation for us to start to ask like what else and how do we want it, coming back to the sex positive community. And so for me, as someone who wasn't orienting toward like what else and how does it look better, it resulted in like stash, 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 store, store, store. Until first of all, I was hitting that breaking point when I wrote that thing in DC to Dan dying and me getting this like, oh, the human body is it. Like I've always loved spirituality and I know that I'm bigger than this body and more than this body, but also like I'm here to live in this body. This is the one that I get. This is the one that the spirit is manifesting through, whatever you believe about spirituality. And so that led me to like reclaim and start to examine why I had bypassed the body so much. But I still didn't feel like I had a way through. And I didn't, part of me, when you start talking about suicide, death, things that are public, you get to actually talk to the community. You get to be like, hey, isn't this fucked up? And it doesn't mean you move through it, but at least you get grief and you get love and you get support and you get care. I could tell someone still to this day, my brother killed himself. And I don't need to say trigger warning. Sorry, we're past that point. But like you get love, you get empathy, but you don't walk around and be like, this happened to me, and that I'm going through that. These people said, like, because there's the shame attached to it as well. And while, yeah, now we have the Me Too movement and we have places where we're reckoning with the wrongs, but reckoning with the tragedy side of it is not the same thing as envisioning it as refilling up, as healing, as loving yourself, as remembering what this fucking thing was made for. And so I feel like you were this, yeah, you've been this like place of courage and like this mirror to be like, ask the question, like say the thing you want to say, ask the thing you want to ask. And like really shift. There was a point in Vita when I had made a post about being like just in a dark place. And I was repeatedly throughout in the program, I was like, I know we're talking about pleasure, but like it's dark, it's dark, it's dark. And it's like, it is. And also, there needed to be the Libby who could step in and be like, it is. But remember, that's not why you came here. It's you got attracted to this because of the light that's here too. And we come out of we studied in a place that was about Tantra, which is light and dark. We're not eliminating the dark. We're not lying about it. We're not pretending it's not there. We're holding both. And we're also holding a vision for more.
Yeah, I feel like it's important to even expand on that, that we're not just holding the darkness, we're actually making the darkness become our ally instead of it being like this enemy that we're trying to keep at bay, right? It's learning, no, no, how have we been miscommunicating with that darkness within us? Now, how do we shift the relationship so that darkness is like just, I was going to say just as much of an ally. I think that that might be the teaching, but my experience is that darkness is your greatest ally. That darkness is way more of an ally than that lightness, but you have to create a healthy relationship with it. And it's not just embracing it, it's embracing it, yes, but it is a fully new relationship, right? My rage is only unhelpful to me if it all consumes me and then I rage out. Well, yeah, my rage is unhelpful. The point is not to get rid of the rage. The point is to learn to be able to feel the rage, to be able to be like, all right, buddy, what are we going to do? How are we going to dance this rage into life in a way that's like fun for me, that feels freaking good? And that's some of the power that I activated when I was really young, unknowingly. And I think that that is what we're supposed to really be doing when we're embracing the dark and the light. It's not just embracing it, it's literally restructuring the way we communicate with it, the way we express it, the way we allow it to live in our bodies so that it then becomes one of our greatest allies. I
Beautiful.
mean, think about it. It's easy to be a good person when you're happy. It's easy to do the right thing and be a good person when you're feeling good and everything's great, right?
Would you mind before we transition into this upcoming experience that you're going to host for women so that they can have an opportunity to start to taste this and work with this? um, would you mind sharing a little bit about your relationship with substance as well? Because this is how many of us deal with the things that we feel like we can't hold. We move into substance so that we have an aid or a tool or uh, a dependency many times in order to face what we can't face. And I don't mean to say that only with judgment, but just we all have our own ways. Even if it's not substance, we all have our own ways. You just happen to be someone who's lived a very full life.
Yeah. Yeah, from the time I was really young, again, going back, I think I had mentioned before with the slut shaming, I knew that I couldn't hold resentment, that it would like eat me up. Even as a young child, I knew that I couldn't hold the experiences that I was going through. Be it like I lost my mother was still alive, but I was separated from my mother on the opposite side of the United States when I was 4. It was like one thing after another, and I knew that I couldn't hold all of this heavy emotion. And so, yeah, I was single digits. Maybe I think it was before the slut shaming, single digits when I started stealing smokes from my dad and then started stealing alcohol as I got a little bit older, but still, I mean, I still wasn't a mother yet. I became a mother at 14. So it was quite early, right? And I would never have thought that I was an addict, but looking back, after I found the world of spirituality and I stopped everything, no alcohol. Personally, for me, I see television as a substance because so for me, an addiction is when you only want more and you need to keep on doing it, but then you don't feel so good afterwards, but you want to keep on doing it. Sometimes men can be an addiction, right? It's like, but I just want more and I just want more and I just want more and there's never enough. But I actually kind of feel bad afterwards, addiction. So looking back from that perspective, I recognize now that it was just one thing after another. So I would recognize that I have a problem with alcohol and I would stop. And then I would find myself taking pain pills and that would go on for a while and I would stop. And then it was another thing. And yeah, what I found through this process of getting in touch with myself spiritually through deep meditation, through connecting with my sexuality, like on a deep, empowered, ritualistic way, is that none of those things can hold power now. Now I can have a drink. Like, I don't know in the, again, quote unquote, like real world, it's very clear, like if you've had a problem with substances, stay away from them. It's very dangerous. I have bottles of alcohol on my counter. I could never go back. I will have a cigarette and it's just like, oh, that's disgusting. How could I ever choose that again? There's no deep connection. And what it seems to be is because I'm not masking. I don't have the things inside of me that hurt, that feel not good enough, that feel scary, that I'm afraid to process. Instead, I'm just feeling all of that stuff. So now, if I try these things that used to be addictions, now they're just like weird things that don't even feel good. I can't even like them for a moment. Yeah, and that's a side effect of when we start doing that, the deeper internal work to actually be willing. There is no perfection, right? I still have my bangles trying to attack. I still have, I still have that critical voice. I still have this part of me. Like I messaged you the other day and I was just like in creating this program, like I'm in a phase of I don't know. But I'm willing to ride those waves. I'm willing to ride those waves. And because I'm so conscious in my moment to moment, like, what am I doing? Is this serving me? What is the purpose of this? Is this in my highest good? Because I've trained myself to live from this space instead of living from, am I enough? Is everything going to be okay? Is it all going to work out right? It's two very different realities to live from because I'm living from this space of really being in tune with what is my intention here? Why am I doing this? Is this actually serving me? Where is this leading me? Is this fulfilling in life? It has taken away any type of hooks that, yeah, that emotional addictions could have, or because I had some emotional addictions before also, but specifically substance addictions too. I mean, hell, it's really freed me from shopping addiction too, now that we're talking about it.
Thank you so much for naming all of those as well. And I especially love them being named as we transition into the program and like why we would work with the pussy specifically and with sexual energy, because there's, at least from the religious and spiritual traditions that I've come from, a lot of times sexuality is put in that boat as well. So we want to come out of our addiction to substance. We want to come out of our, I appreciate you actually naming like TV or entertainment. You're naming emotional addiction, addiction to an entire gender, and, or at least a part of that gender. And also wrapped in with that many times can be like sexuality. And it's not to say sexual addiction doesn't occur, porn addiction doesn't occur, but the wrapping in that if it is sexual by its nature, it is addictive. And so you becoming more spiritual or more independent or more emotionally free means like detachment or disengagement. Unless, of course, you're married, then it's fine and we don't give a fuck what's going on. Which is, to me, part of my greatest passion of bringing these conversations to the table, because we know it doesn't, no problem goes away because there's a ring or a house or a commitment or a legal signing away. These things are a part of us. And so long as they're a part of us and we're relating with another person, they're going to be present there too. There's no fairy tale storyline you can put on it. Even all the verbiage in the conscious community, like soulmate lover, twin flame, or conscious partnership, like there's no language or even inner perception or even deep inner knowing that gets you through intimacy. You got to do intimacy by doing intimacy. And how do we start to view that differently and not just something that's opposing sex or even opposing love? Or sorry, not opposing sex, opposing spirituality or opposing love. how do we start to bring those shadows that we have around sexuality to the table and connect with the light? And so I know you are planning a program called Sexy Bitch, and it's going to be 5 weeks long, and you're going to be getting women in like really what I see it as, you can say how you see it, but what I see is opening a pathway for people who are wanting to explore this to be able to. And I'll just read the subhead for it as well. It says five sexy bitches, 5 weeks to build the self-trust to confidently choose aligned partners, activate your next level of feminine power, and unapologetically love your body without losing weight, having surgery, or compromising your values. So, yeah, tune us in. Why would people want to come work with you on this?
For me, this is the path to truly loving your body. Like what I want is for women to be able to look in the mirror, and I feel like this could be a little bit triggering, but it's like this I'd fuck me energy, I'd choose me energy. Like I am valuable, beautiful, worthy. And from this space, we are willing to speak our desires from just a matter of fact energy, right? We release attachment. We become the source of our own pleasure and our own power. So we're able to just meet a partner with that. And I feel like this is where it can get lost. You talked about sexual addiction, but I also think sexual shut off is just the opposite side of the coin,
Oh,
right? And when our sexuality is something that either we get love for or we do it like it's a connection thing, right? That I get sexy, I bring my sex, I do this sex thing so that I can feel desired, so that I can feel loved. So it's something that I like do with a person to get something. Basically, even though like we don't talk about that, we talk about it's like the sacred thing. You do it in marriage. But yeah, why didn't you do it before? Right? You're doing it because in the name of love, you're doing it to give something to your partner. But it's actually where our greatest life is born from. If there is spirituality, sex is the core of spirituality. It's literally what created you. It is the moment that you were conceived. It is your greatest spirituality. And when we take it, the program is basically taking our sexuality, looking underneath it, figuring out why. Why is it either so uncomfortable, or maybe you are on the addictive side? I feel like there's less women that have that. It's more on the side of being shut off or disempowered around it. But we start by looking at like, where did this come from? Right? I'm not just shoving you in there and being like, okay, like, let's do some deep pussy work. We're doing the foundational work first to be like, no, no, like, where did you pick this up? Is it serving you? Is it even who you are? Right? Is this even in your greatest good? And it gets to be a path where I lead you through for you to build. Like, what is your version of sexiness? What is your deepest connection to your body? What does it take for you to be able to literally stand in a mirror and be like, wow, my body is gorgeous. I feel valuable and worthy. My desires matter. Me empowering my voice actually makes me a more loving mother, sister, daughter. Me speaking my true needs actually makes me a more loving human, actually adds value to my relationships.
yes. And thank you so much for speaking up into sexuality and spirituality, their intersection. If you're listening to this, folks, we're going to be having this conversation for a while in different ways. So let us know what questions you have, what challenges you have, what limiting beliefs are coming up, because we'll be back here with this.
I
But
feel like, can I add a little piece?
please,
I feel like it's really important to add to the deep shame that has been bred into our culture around women and their pussies. And that's another part of the program that is so healing. Almost everyone, including myself, and I was acting as a sexually liberated woman far before this work, and still, I felt like so embarrassed of my pussy. I thought for sure she was like the most ugliest pussy that existed. I always feared before having sexual encounters, but also afterwards that they probably thought my pussy was weird. And yeah, like just really touching on what that does to us to live in a body that we're like, ooh, ooh. Yeah, yeah, and that's one of the greatest powers. I bring the yoni egg into this experience as a soft way to start helping women to be able to look at what I believe is the most spiritual part. Your pussy is the part that brings life into the world. Like that is like your God portal, right? If God created all life, well, this is the portal that gives life. And for a woman to be able to have this soft experience, to have this little crystal egg that she starts to like visit her pussy with in this soft way, so we can actually reclaim our sexuality as our own. It becomes this ritual place. And from that place, I don't think that there's any possibility of either spectrum shutting off or sex addiction, because addiction comes from like this hungry ghost thing. Like, I got to get this feeling, I got to get this feeling, I got to get this feeling. But when your sexuality becomes this sacred space of you honoring yourself and loving yourself and working on your worthiness, then you bring a different gift to your connections. And there is no more shut down, shut off. There is no more. I've heard so many women talk about how their voice wasn't heard and things happened that weren't okay with them. When you have this relationship with your pussy, your voice is heard. Things don't just happen. Things don't just happen. And I really want to be sensitive that that is not saying anyone is ever at fault for things happening. The reason things happen is because we're really injusticed as women. We were taught that we should not have a voice, that our voices don't matter and not just speak up. But getting super intimate with pussy makes that like never again. It resurrects that piece where like our voice was stolen from us.
So powerful. And one more piece that I wanted to ask about as well is before I go into that piece, I want to just initiate the word. I feel like even though I've begun talking about sexuality on Seeds of Elegance, I don't think we've gone into the pussy very much. So I just want to offer, if that word is triggering, please read the book Pussy, a Reclamation by Regina Thomas Eyre, Mama Gina. And yeah, the beauty of, I don't know if you want to speak to why you use that word, but for me personally, what I love about that word, because another word you can use is yoni, which comes from like tantric texts, but pussy is we're taking back that word, and then we're also acknowledging that vagina, vulva, they don't alone capture that entire region. So we are actually using the word that's being used to demoralize that space and say, yep, it's ours and we love it. I don't know, that's how I think of it. Do you have your own anything to say on that word specifically?
Yeah, for a long time, I was using the word vagina until I was educated to know that your vagina is actually the canal that enters. And I realized, oh my God, even as a sexually liberated woman, like I lost my virginity at 11, had a baby at 14. Most people would say I was like in my sexuality, and I still didn't know that fact. And what causes me to still use that word right now, even though I do understand that it triggers a lot of people and that I may lose business from it. Like it may really offend some people. And I have continued to use it anyway, because I feel like it's so powerful for not only for us to have a word that actually does cover the whole thing, right? Like it's an actual word. Like pussy is like it's all of our anatomy down there. But also I feel like it's very powerful to be like, yeah, like that is my pussy. I don't have to call it some word. I mean, our pussy wasn't even in, I don't think the clitoris was even in a medical book until like, it's shameful how recently that was marked in a medical book. It was, I believe, I could be wrong on the exact amount, but wasn't it less than 100 years ago that women were going to doctors to get orgasmed because that would help their craziness? Like that, I think that was less than 100 years ago. Like, let's take back the word pussy. Let's literally like our sexuality has been taken for us for so long. Let's take it back. Let's claim it. Let's get really uncomfortable with the things that feel uncomfortable, because that's where our greatest power is, right? If it felt comfortable to be in our power, we would already have been doing it for these past however since patriarchy started. It doesn't feel comfortable because it was taken from us and we were taught a lot of things against it. But how's that been working? It hasn't been, and it hasn't just not been more. I feel like this is important to say too. Reclaiming the word pussy and reclaiming our body is actually us giving a gift to men, because women who are separated from their pussy and separated from their power, we kind of close down. We kind of shut down. A woman who has been taught to just take care of her husband, do we not notice in how many marriages women either aren't having any sex or they're having obligatory sex, but they're not really there for it, right? A woman who is in her pussy, and it's not just about sex. She's in her pussy. Now she's in her voice. She knows how to lovingly. A woman who's in her pussy learns that we don't complain, we don't control, we don't complain, we don't control, we don't guilt, and we don't shut down. What we learn to do is powerfully and lovingly address the things. And what that does is that calls people up to their greatest power. Your husband, who men don't just do what they do, guarantee your husband will have so much more self-respect when you're a powerful woman. Not only will he have more pleasure if you're a powerful woman and really into the sex, however, aside from the pleasure, you will be calling him up to another version of himself, and he will have more respect for that version of himself. He will have more respect for you, and together you will have deeper intimacy, deeper connection. And whoever programmed our society to think that that wasn't what we should be doing, it serves all of us. This work actually serves the men. This isn't like, this isn't like some feminism, like women take the power back. No, we're taking our power back and it's going to serve everyone around us.
Yeah, it's not go touch your pussy so you can be in a chamber alone touching your pussy. But if that's what you want to do, go ahead. But it's come back in your body so you can be here. We want you here in the world. Women, we want you.
Yes.
You're so loved. I really want to bring that line too, because what you just spoke, Victoria, is so beautiful. And like one thing, me having lost someone to suicide, that is a very important line to me that I tell people is like, you're not replaceable, because that's what death taught me. Like, holy shit, no being is replaceable. Like you're just so not replaceable. And when you go through life and you're in your low points and you're feeling bad, you're like, and especially when you're going through breakups or cheating or things, it's so easy to be like, I don't have what she has, or like, I don't have what they have. And it's like, if you knew what you have, though, because literally there's no one, I know that it sounds cheesy, like snowflake vibes, but we are unique snowflakes. We are all here and we're all a part of this, but your consciousness in this body is unique. And so I just want to emphasize as well, like you get to find it, for people who are coming from my side of things, which is because I do my liberatory love is for me right now helping people more psychologically in the religion and sexuality side. And I still hear from so many people. I had a conversation on Saturday with someone who said that I don't I don't like to express things. Okay, generally I'm having conversations with people, and I heard like from 2 weeks ago from someone who's in their 70s speaking that they're still trying to reconcile their relationship to pleasure as someone raised as a Christian. This person has been married for decades, decades. I won't even say how long. This other person who got on the call with me, who's been in a relationship for over 12 years, was telling me about their fear of, not fear, but like resistance to being in a state of masturbation alone outside of their partner. So people are telling me all the time, and I just want to mirror this back, it's not about them. If this is if you're hearing this, I just want to remind you who might be thinking, I can't touch my body outside of another person because it belongs to them, or pleasure is somehow inhibiting the journey, or I can't start stepping into sex because if I start stepping into sex, like it's a bottomless pit and I don't think I'll make it out on the other side. I don't want to reactivate this trigger because it's so deep. I don't see how this could work. Like, we're holding the net for you. I'll let you paint the image how you want to paint it, Victoria, but like, you're not out here alone. There are people who are forming this path so that you can fall and bounce back, fall and bounce forward, fall and alchemize and become something new. But I want to just welcome this trust that A is here from source that Victoria, you had to fall into on your own, but also is here now in literal formats through you existing and other women existing who are beginning to hold this web.
Yeah, I think it's really powerful for women to remember and to understand and remember that becoming empowered in our sexuality only adds value to our relationships. It only makes relationships and life better. We're so brainwashed to believe that something negative is going to happen, but it's the exact opposite. I have just seen it time and time and time. I recently hired a client, and within the first 2 weeks, she was amazed. She was taught as a little kid that you shouldn't really ask for anything. Her dad regularly shut down her voice. She was asking for too much. They didn't have enough. It was just this regular, like what she was in a family, like what kids have to say is a nuisance. It doesn't matter, be seen and not heard. And so she grew up and she's this very powerful woman. Yet when it comes to relationships, she just kind of goes along with things and she doesn't want to seem too masculine and she's not happy. She came and hired me as a dating coach for this reason. She's not happy with what she's getting, right? And Libby, within 2 weeks, she starts empowering her voice and she was amazed. She was amazed at how they seemed to be more attracted to her. Her dating experiences are more fun. She's being more pursued now. The exact opposite. She was blown away. She's like, I can't believe it. My whole life, I thought it would be a turnoff, that I would lose love, that I would be rejected. She's like, and it's the exact opposite. Yeah.
Ooh.
And
There's
so
one
I just want to like really stress that when it comes to being a powerful woman, embracing our sexuality, doing this type of work, it only makes life better. It only makes relationships better.
Mm. And the last part that I want to add, I know we're getting close on time, but there's a little line that you put in your description for this program that I think is so powerful, which is, work on the self-trust, this confidence, this activation, and loving your body without losing weight, having surgery, or compromising your values. So this for many of us is the first place we go, because even as we talk about the feeling of sexiness throughout this call, there's, for many of us, when we hear sexiness, we think about body. And when we think about body, we think about the place we've been socialized to look, tits and ass. We look at our waist, we look at our thighs, we look at our arms, we look at our throats, we look at the sides of we look at our cheeks, our under eyes, we look at every damn place, scrutinize the fuck out of it, compare it, and create. I mean, for those of you who believe in energy, I mean, think about the energy that we are creating through this quality of self-judgment that is not, in my vantage point, that we are not penetrating because there's not even safe spaces to talk about that yet. We still feel shame for even acknowledging the shame that we feel with
Yeah.
ourselves. That
Shame
again,
over
it's
the
not
shame.
ours.
Yeah.
So I wonder, Victoria, if you could just share a little bit about this shift of not starting there. Even though we're not saying, not we, but it's not saying never have surgery, never lose weight, but actually we want to start at a different place.
Yeah. This idea that I need to be a certain weight to be sexy or attractive. I need to have some perfect, like some ideal of perfection to be sexy or attractive. Or even I need to compromise my values. I need to make sure that I fit into this type of box of what a desirable woman is, right? None of those are actually true, and they're really not helping us. So what I found through my experiences, I had a baby when I was 14 years old, and it really stretched my body out. I had all of these loose hanging skin and a lot of deformities on my body from having a baby. I don't have great elasticity. I gained a lot of weight and lost it really fast. And so I remember when I was 14, I remember crying after I had the baby. I remember looking in the mirror and just thinking like, I was still a teenager, never mind a woman. Like, what teenage boy? I felt like I had elderly issues. Like, from what I had seen from like my elderly grandpa who had like some skin hanging or something, I was like, oh my God, like I have elderly issues. Who's ever going to want me? And this became my obsession for the next 20 years. I became obsessed with working out. I became obsessed with surgeries. I don't know. I was also a dancer along this way. So I was putting myself on display, right? Which only complicated the whole body issue. However, at some point, maybe 15, 17 years in, women at work started telling me that they wished they had my stomach. And I had to go look in the mirror again. And I could see now that they were saying it that, oh, like my body has changed. But literally, if nobody had reflected it back, I still felt unattractive, out of shape. It wasn't until they reflected it back, but even reflecting it back, I could get a sense I've come a long way, but still I still never felt attractive enough. I looked in the mirror, I saw stretch marks. I looked in the mirror and now I was starting to get a little bit older. Then I would like look in the mirror and I would just see wrinkles. It was just constant judgment after judgment after judgment. And although I had practiced carrying myself, like if you knew me well, you would never have thought that I had any insecurity issues. I had practiced this strong woman energy. I lived as a strong woman. I acted as a strong woman. I felt the fear, I felt the discomfort, and I stepped right into those spaces and I grew. But there was something that I just couldn't grow by trying to get skinny enough, by trying, and I had a lot of surgeries, having the surgeries, getting skinny enough. I had my breasts done, and afterwards, I was like, man, they're not even, they probably look worse now than they do before, which is crazy when I think back. I literally regretted having the boobs done, thinking they probably look worse now than they did before. Why did I do that? I did the same thing when I had a tummy tuck. And it wasn't until I started doing this deep inner work. It wasn't until I did the work to truly fall in love with my body, but not just my body, like who I am as a woman, falling in love with the faith that it actually doesn't matter who I lose along my path. Yes, I have feelings and I will be sad, but I know my value. I know my worth. I know what I like the magic of my body. I know my epic qualities. And once we love ourselves and know ourselves on that level, not only do the eyes look in the mirror, my eyes look in the mirror now, and I'm like, damn, I look good. And I still, the inner critic doesn't die. Every once in a while, my inner critic voice will come in, but it's like this immediate where I'm like, what, bitch? You need to sit down. And she's just like, oh, fuck. And she just sits down. I don't believe it anymore. Right. It comes much less often. It's much quieter. But when it does come, I don't believe it. It doesn't capture me. It doesn't captivate me. And the power in being able to live from that space. There's no amount. We can have the surgeries, we can lose the weight, we can shift our true desires. We can pretend like we don't desire and expect what we actually do desire and expect. We can put ourselves into this little box and just be like, oh, relationships are hard. People will be people. I'm just going to take this, even though it doesn't feel in alignment. I'm not going to talk about these things, right? We can do that. But the thing is, we're never going to get what we actually want. Do you want to feel beautiful? You want to feel confident? You want to feel chosen? That comes from the inside first. And when we do it from the inside first, nobody else can take it away. So then the lover that we're with makes a comment that kind of stings. Instead of us suddenly losing everything inside and being like, they know that makes me feel insecure. How could they do that? That is crushing. But when it's built from inside, we just address it. And when we can just address things from a matter of fact, that's actually unacceptable, darling, because it's hurtful, right? Then people will rise. They rise. This is the part I was talking about before, where then they rise. But when we fall apart because of it, because it's so personal, because it's actually touching a wound inside that we haven't healed ourselves yet, they just get defensive. Right. And then nothing really changes. They really do maybe want to be different, but then they just act the same way in 6 months again. And then you feel 100 times more violated because you already told them how it makes you feel. Yeah.
Stop talking about my last relationship. No, but truly, I do want to acknowledge as well, like I've known Victoria for coming on 2 years, and I wrote this in a review that I just did for her, but I was like, the work you did with me then mattered. The work we did 6 months later, because we came back, or a little less than 6 months, we came back and we did some more training together. And then, now I've been supporting you in some of the creative side because that's a stronger suit for me. But I'm like, I can't wait. It's hilarious because I'm like helping, create the foundation for the creative side to be unleashed because I love that. But this work is not about listening. I am changing through listening to you, but you have to do it. Is your body, it is your resistance, it's your beliefs, it's your pain, it's your like, are you ready to open the door? Are you what is it? It's practicing holding that standard. It's practicing seeing the depth of the wounds and the heart stuff and loving yourself through that and loving yourself through attempting to communicate more clearly and learning how to get in touch deeper. So anyway, I'm always like, I can't wait for our next season too, because sometimes as a coach, we're here for a season in your life and that's it. And that's great. We don't need to be a part of your life forever. But there's some areas like for me, I'm like, I don't know how many seasons I'm going to need, you know? And also as sex coaches and people in this industry, I really want to encourage women like we're as diverse as musicians, you know? Maybe you want to listen to a country artist, maybe you want to listen to R&B. It's all music, but it's going to give you a totally different energy. Like I hope my vision within the sexuality and spiritual coaching industry is that that's what it feels like. Like there's not just a single image of what a sex coach is. It's like, oh shit, we can go to the country music festival or we can go
Yeah.
to the pop one and like everyone has something to offer because there's infinite ways our sexuality can impact the entirety of our life. So you're getting a flavor today of the Victoria Amor show and listen to what your body is doing. Like listen to what your body did through this session and listen to how it responds over the next couple of days. Because this is just, I mean, I didn't plan to say this, but to me, as you were talking so much about how your voice changes as your pussy changes, like we are two people who are in different spaces in our own relationship with sexuality, but everything you spoke about has been a value of mine as well. And I've watched I mean, it is through this work that I was able to step outside of organized religion, which I had wanted to do my whole life, but I felt like I couldn't do. And it's this work that let me be like, this is it, you know, and no shade and no hate on organized religion if that's a space you want to be in. But is it a space you want to be in? Because many of us who were raised in it, we didn't get consent about going. We just got thrust into a narrative. You have to be there. And so, yeah, to get to be in a program these next 5 weeks where you can remember this body and this being, and be supported in that, not have to just go on that through reading the book Come As You Are, which is a beautiful book, or that's what I hear. A lot of people come in my world, they're like picked out a book, you know, or this work, it is intense to do. So to actually allow yourself to be supported in that, consider yourself worthy of having a goddess, having a woman who wants to be a steward of this, here to guide. And in fact, don't even have a goddess, have a love daddy. Let's just close on where they can find you and this name Love Daddy, Victoria Moore.
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at her_love_daddy. I'm really more active on Facebook, which is just Victoria Amor. But the Love Daddy is so valid to give a little description because I'm rebranding as her Love Daddy because it is my dad and really both of my parents in general, but because my dad raised me, my dad gave me more lessons. But it is having this dad figure that always wanted to hear my voice, always asked my opinion. I was treated like one of the adults, always wanted to know what I had to say, and also gave me really empowering lessons about what I get to accept, say yes, say no to, and really what's available. That like always let me know, yeah, people are going to act in a certain way. It's not about you, but there's this more available. So I got given this beautiful foundation by my dad, and I noticed that that's something that the majority of our world we just didn't get. And so my invitation is for you to come into my world. Let me start by giving you what my dad gave me so that you can build, so you can be your own empowered daddy, so you can build your own what is true, what is right, your own empowered voice. And 100% it only makes our relationships better. Another piece I want to throw in is that if you do feel a little bit of shame with beginning to reclaim your sexuality, for the first 3 women that sign up, they get a bonus yoni egg. So you don't have to worry about like the added shame that might come. I would imagine if you already have shame in buying some type of pussy activating toy. Yeah. So there's a little extra bonus. You won't have to buy that for yourself if you were to sign up.
Beautiful.
Hmm.
There's already like 1,000 more things I want to keep going on, but
I
we're
know.
gonna allow that. That will be here. Please don't hesitate to reach out to either of us and bring your questions. I think I can say that for both of us, right? Bring the
Sure, for sure.
questions.
Yes.
Bring like the inner voices that are judging you for even reaching out. Like we're here to make the wave.
I also want to share, I'm available for all of the things. I recently had someone post a negative comment on my Instagram, and I just want everyone to know that I'm the kind of woman and coach that if you are feeling something negative and you actually want to be able to say that to me, that like not only can I hold that, but I can reflect back and help you see that when someone gives you a negative comment, that you can find rightness in it while still holding your power and inviting them into something more. So just know I'm a safe space for that. I feel like too often it's like, oh, sure, if I have something nice to say, but what if you don't? What if you need to unleash some of your tougher feelings? Like, I'm here for that too.
That's so beautiful. Only go to Victoria for that, not me. But you can tell me about your fears and creativity. Thank you so much for this time, Victoria. Thank you for being you. I truly feel safer on this planet for you. I feel more, I want to also end with something that I shared with you in my little review for you the other day, which is like my relationship with Jesus Christ, the Lord, is amplified through knowing you, through doing this work, and through loving my body. And it feels very important for me to speak that to the young Libby who lived, who still exists in my body, and for so many people who are in my personal community who are lovers of Jesus and Christ and marriage and God and godliness. Ask your questions. Like that's what I would. Those are the ones you can bring to me. Where does God fit into this? Answer it, and come find out. I don't have that answer for you. But not asking the question also doesn't have the answer for you. And leaving it to the Bible or your husband or the church doesn't have the answer for you either. So come bring those questions, come literally, and have a beautiful evening. Thank you for being here.